Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about something that's been pointed out as a problem with the whole effective rep theory, and that has to do with bar speed. And this is one of the reasons that we don't necessarily need to pay attention to the effective rep theory entirely for people when we go over to conjugate type training, because we all do speed work. Right, and hopefully a lot of you out there at this point, if you're not a novice and you're not looking into doing conjugate type training, I'm not really sure what you're doing. I mean, I've presented plenty of evidence as to why this is generally the best templates to use uh, for virtually any sport. But let's come over to the point about the speed work, because people will bring that up, and particularly I'll have clients who bring it up, and they're like, "Do I have enough volume on my speed days?" And it's like, yeah, you have plenty of volume on your speed days, right? Unless you have a perfect lifestyle without a job and stuff, I wouldn't increase your volume very much, over the volumes I oftentimes have them doing, because a lot of times I have them doing multiple supplemental exercises afterwards. But when it comes to the training volume from speed work, they all count as effective reps. And let's look at the issue that Beardsley has with the effective rep theory. He always points out slow reps when it's discussed. Like when you look at those charts, it's only slow reps. In other words, the last 5 reps before you reach muscle failure, and this is what all these evidence-based experts discuss, the last 5 reps before you reach failure are the ones that reach your upper threshold motor units. These are the ones that are going to cause a training response. And I've seen guys like Dr. Mike Israetel point out that each subsequent rep as you get closer to failure probably has a slightly larger training response. So let's say you're working with a 10 rep max. Rep 6 is going to start causing adaptations. Rep 7 is going to be better, 8, 9, 10, all the way up till you get to, the last rep before failure. Each one is going to have a slightly more pronounced training effect than the one before. The problem with this theory is the assumption that everything you're doing is slow. But let me ask you guys this real question. Why are we lifting slow other than pure metabolic fatigue work? In other words, the only reps that any reasonable person who's trying to train to be athletic in any way are going to be your high volume training. I get it. If we're working with 10s or 15s or 20s, yeah, we're oftentimes going to be moving slower. I tend to work very slow with things like my good mornings, for example. But the majority of our lifts, are we going to be going slow? Or are we going to be pushing as hard as we can? Well, we're generally going to be pushing as hard and as fast as we can. And I'll venture to say that even a lot of our other sets, let's say you're doing some higher rep work. What happens if you move some of the reps on the way up really, really fast and hard? Well, you're going to get more than 5 effective reps. Let's say you're doing 20 reps set to failure with your curls. What's going to happen if reps, 5 through 10, you explode super fast, right? And you don't control them. And then it slows down a little bit as you start to get fatigued. And then you take it to failure at set 20. How many effective reps did you get? Potentially up to 10 instead of just 5. All right, we run into problems with this very quickly, and I've seen, again, Knuckles point this out in some of his writings on it. This is how he debunks the theory. He's not saying it's not largely true. I'm not saying their effective rep theory is not largely true. It's that there's a caveat. It's only true in the context of slow reps. So it starts to beg the question, why are people doing most of their exercises really slow? Like, what is it you think you're going to get from that? I get it. There are movements that, for safety purposes, we're better off moving them slowly. Right? Good morning is a perfect example because of the nature of the exercise. Especially the eccentric. Of course, a lot of people will point out, well, if I explode really hard, I can't always get my 10 reps with my 10 rep max. Or do you see a problem there? Maybe because you worked harder and recruited upper threshold fibers sooner and got a better training response, that you don't want to do it that way because you can count more reps the other way? I mean, this can become problematic. And I mean, I get it. I do a lot of pretty moderate tempo reps for my high volume stuff. But is that really what we should be doing? I don't know that that's the case. I mean, again, you can get away with it. It's probably fine if you're doing it with just your volume work. If you're running a template like I do, where we have max work, we have speed work, because we're hitting upper threshold fibers on our max work, even the ramp up. Because on our ramp up, let's say we end up doing 5 singles. Now, if we're doing 5 singles and we're pushing as hard as possible, ramping up to a 1 rep max, even those lighter ones had a very large training response, right? And we're usually doing that with really big exercises that work a lot of muscle. But our issue that we come down to is that this hypothesis doesn't work unless we go slow. And the question that we have to ask is that for anyone out there who's trying to become strong and athletic, why would you move everything slow? Again, I get it. There's certain exercises that lend themselves better to going slower. There's a lot of exercises that lend themselves to exploding. And if we're generally training explosively, it means we're going to get a better training response. Particularly on the concentric reps. So might I suggest that if we're trying to get the best possible training response, that we maybe control our eccentrics on a lot of lifts and then explode on the concentric? And if we do that, the effective rep theory goes away, and we might be getting a better response from every set. And you're not going to worry that much about your tempo, in the sense that a lot of times we'll say, well, if I do it that way, I can only get 8 reps with that weight instead of 10. It's like, okay, so if you want to get 10, then reduce the weight slightly so that you can explode harder. It's going to be better for your recovery. If you can get a larger training response with 10 less pounds on the bar, why wouldn't you get the larger training response with 10 less pounds on the bar? I mean, there's a reason people's backs blow up from super strict explosive Pendlay rows, even with light weight. And when we talk about stuff like this as tools, I don't want people to think that this needs to be used exclusively. Because not every exercise that we do can be done explosively. Right? It's not safe to do that on every single exercise. But here's what I would suggest. Maybe the exercises that you can go explosively, you should go explosively. We should be pushing as hard as we can. We have to quit leaving energy in the tank early on in a set. Other than, again, really small exercises. I mean, I get it on face pulls. I get it on your curls. I don't know that we should be doing that with tricep extensions. There's a lot of tricep exercises that being very explosive is very useful. Certain movements, again, maybe a glute ham raise, it's really hard to be explosive on. All right. What about most of your other stuff? And I think that it can skew people's ideas of volume. That's the issue we run into, is that when people are used to this, the volume being judged by the slower tempo work, and then they start looking at speed work or dynamic effort work, they'll say, well, is that really a lot of volume? None of that's really, effective reps. When the truth is, you could be doing 30 effective reps. And if you're doing 30 effective reps, that's equal to 6 sets to failure. Usually on a really big exercise, a squat, a bench, a deadlift. I would argue that that's probably the most effective way to get hypertrophy out of movements, particularly like squatting and deadlifting. Using the compensatory acceleration, doing dynamic effort work. Because it disregards It completely disregards the effective rep hypothesis. Or it doesn't disregard it, it follows it perfectly. Because it's not slow reps, it's the exception. Alright guys, well that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.